All right, hello everybody. My name is Brian. Uh, Recently, this last weekend in Boise, Idaho, we had a Yu-Gi-Oh regional and all about games. It was an event that was kept at 70 players just due to space. I would not be surprised if it was able to break probably 100 players if we had more room, but very large turnout, great turnout. A lot of people from Washington, some Utah players came down. It was nice. Um, I unfortunately finished X3. I believe with my tiebreakers, I would have gotten top 8 if I had won my last round. But I'll go over kind of the unfortunate event that was game 3 in a minute. But as you can see on your screen here, I played pure punk. I've been playing punk for a while. I really enjoy the punk cards. I think the deck is very fun. That's why I chose to play it. It is definitely weaker than a lot of other choices out there. Um, like all of the tier variants are just absurdly explosive, and pretty much they only lose to Shifter or the die roll. Um, and then there's not a whole lot else you can do. That being said, sometimes you can hand trap them enough to where their boards are breakable, and you can sometimes kill them through it, so you don't have to deal with it. Kind of the idea that I had here. So, kind of just want to talk about the punk deck. Kind of go through my thoughts on it, how I see it moving forward. I truly believe if you're able to see your engine every game, your deck is absurdly powerful. You have a pretty powerful toolbox. Um, just kind of with everything here, especially the extra deck. And looking at this now, um, there's actually a card that is incorrect. Okay, fixed it. Um, but yeah, so these Mystic Mines are actually incorrect as well. Shows how prepared I am. But either way, let's kind of go through this here. So, starting off, you play the uh, 3 Ogre, 3 Foxy. These are the level 8s. I do not believe you should be playing less than that, especially since this is a dark, this is a light. And these get you to any other piece that you need. This can include Deer Note, any of the tuners. Can start your plays off with a Wagon into the field spell, things like that. Should not be playing less than this. I don't know why people would cut these. 3 Deer Note. This is debatable at 2. I don't actually want to play 3. I want to play like 2.5 because I don't like drawing this card that much. Although if you draw enough punk names, technically you can still play and even extend with it. But as you can see, I'm playing 51 cards main board, so that's not always the case. Um, Still a very powerful card. Um, Lets you still extend into any of the tuners if needed. And that's always nice. 3 Xiamen. This card is nuts. It has a graveyard effect that you can chain block with. It searches any punk other than itself, which is very important because, like the others, the bigger ones, they have restrictions for their same level. Xiamen does not. Very important. 2 Shirakusai, 1 Wagon, 1 Madame Spider. These are combo pieces. So, I truly believe in this deck you should be extending as far as you possibly can and being as greedy as you can to get to more pieces of interaction, because if they had interaction, they're going to hit you probably earlier rather than later, which I believe is correct. Um, if they have something like an Ash Blossom, they're probably ashing the Xiamen or the Foxy Tune effect and not waiting until you're making Rising Carb off of Shirakusai. Generally, anyway. Um, Either way, you're probably getting blown out, is what it is. This guy searches the field spell, and the field spell is ridiculous. I think this is the reason to play the punk deck. Um, it is literally Pot of Greed and an extender in one card. The extender part is a soft once per turn, so if you have multiple copies in your hand allows it, you can continue to extend. Madame Spider searches trap cards, which are a part of your end board. I chose to play 1 Gabu, 2 Nashawari. Uh, this is a concession to Mystic Mine, unfortunately. And if you ever mill one or something, or you have to banish one off Gizmek or Desires before making your plays, you want to be able to search another one. This card is basically just it's kind of redundant because you play Imperm. But this card also lets you gain life in time, which is very important. Unfortunately, I lost one of my rounds to Tier because I was not able to gain life with this card, just due to mostly another one of my own misplays, and I'll go over that later. So with the Punk deck, you play, it's the 12, 16 names. You also play 3 Teleport, so it's 19 names technically. The next part about the Punk deck, because you're drawing so many cards, because you're making Chaos Ruler in your main part of your combo, you want to play hand traps. And the hand traps I played were the ones that I felt were either most impactful or could be potential combo pieces. So Gamma Driver, it's a level 2 that you can get off Teleport, which is important for some lines if you have Shinobi Necro stuck for any reason, or if it gets banished off something like Gizmek or Desires. Generally want to Halq this out of your deck before doing that, but either way. This lets you make double level 8s, or excuse me, double level 10s before committing to the Calamity line, which is what this deck specifically is doing. I'm making Calamity. This card is also theoretically extremely strong against cards like Ash Blossom. If you're activating Teleport or Desires or Foxy is your first activation. People generally don't do that anymore, or they're off of those cards entirely. This card's also great for stopping something like Standby Phase Dweller, which some people just blind if they don't know what you're playing. So, also, if this card resolves on your turn, it's a free Chaos Ruler / Dragon Drive, and can be insane. 3 Crow, it's probably the most generic hand trap this format. It hits most everything. It's also a dark. It's not once per turn, so drawing multiple copies doesn't matter. 3 Nibiru, this card's a light. So far, all these have been lights and darks. This card is insane. It punishes pretty much every tier variant that isn't making a Baron. It punishes Sprite if they have awkward hands, or if you have interaction with their Gigantic before they make Toad. It blows out Math Mech if you combine it with something else for the most part. Overall, it's insane. Yeah. 3 Imperm, because it does not trigger tactics. Also, if you're going first and you draw this card, you can set it for interaction. So it's effectively a 2-for-1, because you can also draw this as your 6th card, and it does something. Sometimes that's very relevant. 1 Ghost Ogre. You only play 1. You only need 1. This card kind of sucks, but you can search it off some lines with Dragon Drive for a free piece of interaction, and that's really hard to say no to. It's also just a light tuner, so you can also teleport for it. It's versatile enough to play at 1. And then like non-engine hand trap pieces, 3 Gizmek Orochi. This card is crazy. It applies pressure to Sprite, gives you another level 8, lets you extend, lets you live through the battle phase through Dweller. Overall, this card is incredible. With a higher deck count, you don't see it quite as often, but also with the higher deck count, you can activate it more freely and aggressively. There have been games where I've activated this 3 or 4 times in a game. Shinobi Necro, this is just kind of your Halq combo piece. It lets you make double, sometimes double 10, but mostly 10 plus Calamity, because it brings itself back off of Chaos Ruler. Also guarantees you have a dark for the Chaos Ruler, unless you're doing absolute bare bones combo, and then it's a little rough, but yeah. Snow, this card's okay to draw. You can just pitch it off of Foxy, but mostly you're just kind of rolling the dice. If you mill it, great. If you don't, who cares? You're not seeing it anyway. But you're not a snow deck. That's about the only difference. Terraforming is just the 4th field spell. 2 Desires. This card is just free in this deck. Yeah, this probably shouldn't be legal. Called by. I'm one of the few people who thinks Called by should be at 3 and not at 1. I think this card is very powerful. I think this card bottlenecks the metagame to where everybody has a good generic answer, and it means it's not a sacky one of. I think banning this card is bad because I think hand traps, being as powerful as they are for the most part, is absurd. Granted, tier has kind of changed how that functions in the game. I guess they don't care about hand traps for the most part. It's kind of dumb. This event I chose to play 3 Cyclone. I refuse to lose to Mystic Mind anymore. It's not fun. It's not interactive. I don't want it to happen. But it's also just kind of applicable in other matchups. Against tier, uh, there are some rare occasions where they'll do something like summon Merly, mill 3, whiff, set a back row, pass. And if you just hard Cosmic, it's either Super Poly or Soliac, and you just feel fantastic about that, and then you kill them. Against Sprite, you can hit their Smashers. If they set multiple back row, you're still hitting something. Um, against mine, if you draw it going first, you just set it. If you hit like Paralino with it, you're feeling great because they're not breaking your board with it. They might not have a playable hand if their field spell doesn't resolve. Overall, a fantastic card. So, no Ash Blossom. I think that card is a poopy doo doo. I do not think it is a good card at all. Right now, it's such low impact. You would much rather be playing like Valor, Skullmeister, Bell. They stop more critical effects. If you're even playing that many hand traps, there's a point where you do have to stop. For the extra, Halq, this card should probably be banned. I don't want it to be banned because I love playing with it. This card is absurd. It facilitates your Calamity combo, which is why this deck is arguably competitive. Going first, if you are not interacted with, you're very likely winning the game. Unless there's a handful of cards that kind of blow you out. You're going to lose to those cards regardless of what your end board is. You have to accept that. But there's a non-ignorable amount of games where you just win because you summon Calamity and your opponent cannot play. You play Lambda because there are some lines where you make this and you can still activate Gamma. Some lines you make this and your opponent is scared of Gamma and they play around it awkwardly, but you never have it. So you get to more profitably play your other hand traps or interaction. Zombie Vampire. I think I made this once over the weekend. You don't make this card very often. You don't want to mill Frogs against Sprite. You don't want to mill Tears against tier opponents. Against Mathmech, you just fill their graveyard for Diameter. This card kind of sucks, but there are some games you have to make it to resolve your line. Mainly because it's a dark. This card is also the quote-unquote Xyz target for Ultimate Slayer in the sideboard. I don't think that one's ever going to come up too often. You play Formula for the Calamity combo. It's Formula plus Shinobi or Gamma plus Chaos Ruler, and you make Calamity. That's 2/2 and 8. No Jet Synchron Hot Red plays. We don't do that here. It's not really impactful enough. You'd rather just make Barone because it can affect more cards. One Wind Pegasus at Ignister. This is a concession to Ultimate Slayer, but also there are niche lines where you make it with Snow plus a 3 tuner, and it can also pop a card. Might come up. I actually made this over the weekend in a game where I was probably losing that game anyway, to be honest, but it is what it is. I was pretty tilted that game, so. Dragon Drive, this card is nuts. Never summoned it back with its effect because it never really comes up. But it's there, but it also lets you search interaction. Sometimes if you just Gamma them, you make this, because it's generic. Well, it requires a Psychic Tuner, which you have. You make this guy, you search out Xiamen, make your play, go from there. Pretty good. Omega. This is for Ultimate Slayer. Um, Never used it otherwise, never made it, and probably never will. This card probably ban worthy. I don't know. This card's crazy. Uh, it's says mill 5. Add the best card in your deck there. Revives itself. It's a dark dragon. This card's dumb. Baron, so one of the cards that you make. Cheng Ying. I actually never made this over the weekend, but this card is crazy. This card can get gigantic between your desires, your Gizmek, snows. There are definite times when this card is 7,000 plus attack. You're lowering all your opponent's monsters by 35. Zeroboros is likely still not big enough for this, crazy enough. And there's also lines where you just banish the Zeroboros with this. So, this card's great. Amazing Dragon. I'm only playing one. I know there's lines where you can extend with it, but to be honest, this card did not come up too often over the weekend. Usually they were conceding to Calamities, or I was making it bouncing their board and killing them, and the second one never came up. You can bounce up to 5 cards in this deck with this card, and crazily enough, you can do some other crazy things with this, like extend. If it ever 6th round, you just revive a dude. It's great. Psychic End, this card is absurd. It's kind of the thing you go into when you get hand trapped to death, and you resolve a Gizmek and have a level 3 left. You just make this guy. You go to battle phase, gain life, and pass. You hope they don't deal with it, and then it just gets so big that you just one punch them, and that's quite literally the game plan. Won most of the games I made this. I did lose a game I made this because he had Chaos Goddess. It is what it is. This is what you're aiming to do with this deck. Summon Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. This card says your opponent cannot activate cards on the field, and cards that are on the field cannot activate their effects. There is a big problem with this card. One, it can miss timing, which is absurd. And 2, this does not prevent your opponent from activating cards in their hand, such as Dangers. It does not prevent your opponent from activating cards in their graveyard, such as Tier Element cards. It does not prevent your opponent from having continuous effects, such as Sky Cavalry. It does not prevent your opponent from making a 4-material Zeus, if they have normal plus extender and sprite. Kind of unfortunate. Is what it is, though. This card is strictly for Ultimate Slayer. It just turns it into Upstart plus spin your dude. And then Rising Carp, this is just how you extend into, usually you're summoning Madame Spider off of it. So Search Trap. So. The sideboard, Reboot. Never drew it. Card's insane, though. There can be only one. You bring this in going first against just about everything. You can play under it. Most opponents cannot. Tier can probably play under it, but you're probably not bringing it in against them anyway. I think I would actually rather have the Cosmics, which is usually what I was swapping them for. You have Evenly Matched. This card is crazy. You're bringing it against Sprite. If you deal with their Toad, you just blow out their board. The non-Barone versions lose to this from Tier. Pretty good. Let's go 2 Twin Harpies and Pank. Pank is insane against Sprite. These 2 cards are okay. Never drew them. Never cited in Twin, I don't think. I would have preferred like 3rd Ultimate Slayer plus something, or just like anti-spells or something. They would have been better. Dark Ruler, I never drew it. The card is great going into boards. Lets you break their board, set up your unkillable board, or just set up Calamity. They can't play again. The game ends. Ultimate Slayer was fantastic for me, except for my round 7. Game 3 of round 7, I was going second into Sprite. My hand was Ultimate Slayer, Harpy's Feather Duster, Dark Ruler No More. No. Ultimate Slayer, Harpies, Evenly, Gamma Ogre was my 5-card hand, and my 6th card was a second Ultimate Slayer. My 7th card was a Dark Ruler. So I did not get to play the game. Probably why I didn't top, but I didn't intend for this video to be 20 minutes long. I just kind of wanted to talk about my regional deck, kind of talk about my experience with the deck. Overall, I think it's insanely powerful. It does not have the ceiling or the capability to play through something like Sprite does, or like a tier. It does not have the very standard powerful sprite lines where you just have an insane amount of recovery, which is probably where sprite is most powerful. It puts up like 3 to 4 pieces of interaction, but it has very, very good follow up. And this deck puts up very similar amounts of interaction, depending on how many hand traps you draw, plus your back row. You know, you could be sitting on 6, 7 pieces of interaction, um, in addition to Calamity. So overall, deck is fun. Um, Probably wouldn't change too much moving forward. I don't know. Maybe move around hand traps or something. I don't know. The side deck definitely probably needs some work. Probably anti spells instead of twins, just as another go first card, so that you don't get dark rulered yourself. But other than that, take care.